The Moton Mailbag is brought to you by the Robert Russo Moton Museum, located in Farmville, Virginia. The Moton Museum is a civil rights museum focusing on the history of Prince Edward County between 1951 and 1964.
Welcome back to the Moton Mailbag. My name is Kanan Townsend, Director of Education and Public Programs.
And I'm Liam Brown, the Assistant Director of Education. The Moton Mailbag is a weekly listener question show. Each week we'll answer questions about U.S. history, African American culture, civil rights, and more. Feel free to submit your questions via Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Moton Museum, or you can email us at info@motonmuseum.org.
So, I think probably by the time you hear this, I think we'll be reopened.
Yeah. Open in June 15th?
That sounds right. I wanted to say 25th. I'm like, no, that's too late. That's when the contracts, that's when we sign contracts or something. Anyways, what do you miss, what are you looking forward to the most about reopening? Mine is an easy answer.
People?
Haircut is my answer.
Oh my God. I will admit I've enjoyed watching the hair journey you have been on. It's been hilarious.
It's because you're trifling and you don't like me.
Do you know how much hair I have?
You laughing at my suffering.
Do you know how many burns I have had from fire?
I don't, but I don't envy long hair. Yeah. And I will get my hair cut as soon as it is responsible.
I understand your struggle. Yeah.
So bad.
Yeah.
I'm about to be bald for real.
Oh my God.
I'm about to shave everything. and people will be like, why are you bald? Because I want to be, leave me alone. Hairline's not receding or anything yet. I'm like, it's just easier. I'm about to just start shaving. Wear hats. So I don't be cold.
Oh my God. Why does she with the beanie on?
I'd rock a beanie. Or like a fedora.
Did you just say the word fedora to me?
Yeah, Bruno Mars it up. Like, I give me a little fedora.
Oh, Bruno, yeah.
Or throw it back and get like a.
You get a top hat. I mean, you shouldn't, but you should.
What are those hats called, ladies? Like Run DMC, like Kango?
The Kangos? Yeah.
Kango
My dad has some of those.
I can rock one of those.
I mean, I would think it's great, but I'm an enabler, so.
And I can give me a little tracksuit, get some Adidas.
Get that big chain, we're good to go.
We are happy that things are opening back up, but we encourage people to be safe, follow guidelines by CDC, by your local health organizations. But we look forward to being back open, because it's people. We need people. We're a cultural site, it's been great what support we have gotten while closed, but it's a significant decrease of what we get than usually when people are here and able to donate more freely and things like that. So, go places, support your cultural sites if you're able, if you feel safe. But yeah, please support your cultural orgs if you want us to still be around and not be canceled like summertime and canceled like buffets. I seriously wonder, what is Golden Corral gonna like? I hope nobody CEO of Golden Corral nothing's listening. I doubt they are, but like, what are they gonna do? Like, cause it's
a valid question.
We'll probably never go back to a Golden Corral.
They keep selling the rolls.
Yeah.
They'll probably do like a dinner thing, like a dinner package.
It probably has to be a regular restaurant and not be a buffet. But it's Golden Corral. Like, you go to it because it's a buffet. Like, I can get a chocolate covered marshmallow and sushi and a steak and fried chicken in the same sitting. Like, that's kind of their thing. But like, it's also gross.
It's American cuisine.
Them sneeze guards, I'm like, those are so like tiny. I was like, I didn't even know what those were until the pandemic. Honestly, I've been into so many and I'd seen it. I had no idea.
What?
I just figured if somebody had sneezed, they would turn around.
Oh, you expect things from people. That's the difference.
I thought it was etiquette. I was like, what? I said these were sneeze guards. I'm like, that's not protecting no sneeze. Mm-hmm. Like when you sneeze like 5 meters or something crazy. Like you sneeze a super far distance, and it stays in the air for like 20 minutes or something. So like, what that little tiny. Anyways, tangents aside, like I don't think I'll ever go back to a Golden Corral.
I feel like my spirit is telling me I have to tell you this story.
Oh Lordy.
Oh my God. Somebody was in like a grocery store and they had like a like a make a meal kind of thing, like a salad bar. They had a soup thing. This dude, hand to God, rolled up to the soup thing, picked up the ladle, drunk out of it, dipped it back in, drunk out of it again, and just walked off. I just can't. Like, in what universe would that be permissible
Good
behavior?
riddance buffets. Good riddance. Figure something else out. Oh my Atlanta.
I just don't know why.
I'm
the
shook.
look of horror on your face is magical.
I'm shook because that's gross. Like people
That's
messing
real
with
gross.
food is like one of my biggest pet peeves and fears. I am the nicest person. We're sorry for this tangent, but I gotta finish now. I am the nicest person, and I tip probably the best out of anybody in my entire friend group. People being like, I'm like, you being all rude to these people making your food. I'm like, all right, you end up with something in it. Like, you better stop playing. Like, I know too many of these people who have worked here before. They used to be my friends or colleagues or high school, classmates, and I know if you're rude that some hands might not get washed or something, So I'm just like, I am the kindest, the nicest. I don't care how long it takes. I'm like, look, I get it. I will get my food when I get my food. Thank you so much for your hard work. Like, I am the kindest. Just because one, it's a nice thing to do, but two, I don't want nobody messing with my food. Like, we gotta no.
Also, like, nobody made you go to a restaurant. You chose to go.
True.
So just,
Yeah, if you don't tip,
be kind.
Don't go out. Like, that is another pet. Like, I didn't mean for this to be. Let's just pretend somebody asked us what our restaurant pet peeves were. Not tipping. Seriously, just don't go out.
Yeah,
Some people are like, I can't afford to go out. I'm like, then don't sit in a restaurant because this is how these people get paid. They make $1.30 an hour or something ridiculously low, and the only money they get is on tips. You're like, oh, well, they didn't do this fast enough. I'm like, well, they probably have other people they're waiting on too. Like, I get it. If they're like absolutely terrible, and even then I still tip minimum 15%. Even if they were the worst service I've ever got, the lowest I've tipped is 15%. Because people still gotta eat. People still gotta live.
Right.
People, this is their job. And now, however, if they're really, really bad, I'll still tip and I'll complain to the manager if it really gets to that level. But like, just tip. Like, come on, like, seriously? Like, just tip. Like, this is their livelihood.
Yeah.
Like, oh, I feel like going out and having a good time, but I can't afford to tip. Like, just
So
get fast food.
don't go. That means you can't afford to go out.
That sucks. Like, but it's tip because I'll eat, but I just won't pay the person who's bringing me the food. No, that's not right.
I agree. I'm with you.
Do you have any other pet peeves in restaurants?
Do you have any other rants?
Since we just need a rant corner. That'll be a segment of.
Oh my god, that'd be fun.
Rant of the week. Well, anyways, I think it's as good a time as any to transition into actual questions that people asked us, and that are riffing. But buffets are canceled. I'm sorry. I will miss them, but buffets are canceled. Anyways, first question, and Leah will answer it first because I'm sure her answer will be better, and I need time to think about my thoughts. Leah, what are your, and this is very broad, so I'm curious to see how she interprets this question, but what are your top 3 favorite historical moments?
Okay, guys. Number 1, of course, is the Battle of Yorktown because I love it. It's amazing and it's just magical and the power of place, big old nerd going to read out 9 and 10, being like, oh my god, Hamilton was here, this is amazing, blah, blah, blah.
Monsieur Lafayette.
Yeah. Okay, so got that one. We knew that was coming. Second thing, the Harriet Tubman raid. Okay, here we go. Set the scene. Harriet Tubman is working with the Union Army, so African American woman, part of the Union Army. All right, so let's go. June 2nd, 1863. Oh Lord. An African American troop, like, I think it's the 150th, were with Harriet Tubman and they freed over 700 people who were enslaved in one raid. The Combahee Ferry Raid, that's the name of it. It's in South Carolina. All right, so here we go. She was with the army. She was, I think she was a laundress. She was a cook. And then she learned the waterways. She learned where the mines were in the river. Okay, let me calm down. Here we go.
Wait,
so,
what's the difference between a chef and a cook? Well, that's in
I think it's like, I guess if you went to like a school, like you're a chef, like you've gone through like the the logistics of cooking. You had like a particular training maybe versus like, oh, I cook.
Like an apprentice versus a master or whatever I get you.
But then like some people are just, they just cook, you know, that like back and forth.
Gotcha.
All right.
Sorry.
Like a tangent's coming. I gotta put the tangent down. We'll get back to that. But like thinking about how over 700 people. Think about that number. Over 700 people were free that day because of the raid.
Yeah.
All right. Big fan of a boat. Very simple woman. Tidewater, Virginia. It's kind of like the explain all of me. Waterways and land. It is what it is. So learning the landscape, learning the waterways, learning where the mines were, that military aspect of it. She just like went on through, constantly being shot at, by the way. And she managed to save, well, she and the troops,
right.
Got to give them the USCT, United States Colored Troops, their shout out as well, saving over like hundreds of people in one raid. That's amazing. It's amazing. And it's just like, oh my God. How do you even start to plan that? How do you make that happen? You know, it's just like the whole event. It's like, it's awesome. Okay. And last thing, because this just cracks me up. All right. So, of course, I looked to see where I read this at, but I read a lot, so it's somewhere in the ether. So W.E.B. Du Bois was in his office, and down the hall or across the hall, these guys were just making all this noise, all this ruckus, and he was hot. He was mad. It was Thurgood Marshall and the crew. And I'm like, do what now? Like, what? No. And then I was reading Maya Angelou's book, All God's Children Need Traveling Shoes. She was in Ghana at this point. And then like Malcolm X just showed up randomly where she was. And I was like, Malcolm's there? And so my third answer, my favorite historical moment is when I'm reminded these are people. These are human beings with full emotional range who have made decisions, they have experiences. They're not just historical figures, stoic and just sitting.
Right.
They're people. And I think that, for me, is one of my favorites because it reminds me why history is important, to learn the aspects of like, oh no, these were people. It weren't just generic posters on the wall, which some people have been like limited to.
Humans are very imperfect.
Yeah.
And they made mistakes and errors and weren't perfect people.
Yeah. But then like people laugh, they have friends, they chat each other up, they have like full conversations, they argue. It's allowing historical figures to be people. That's the phrasing I want. There it is. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah.
What you got?
This is hard because history is everything, right? Like, and there's so many. I think on the last pod we talked about history being kind of interdisciplinary in nature. So like, there's different aspects. I guess I have a very eclectic list. I was preface with that. Number one, everything about ancient Egypt.
Yes. Were you an ancient Egypt kid?
I wasn't.
I was.
But I'm super curious.
Yeah.
I will not go down conspiracy theory territory. No, that's a different podcast. But how the heck did they build the pyramids? Like, I don't know. Like, the giant statues, like with their technology, with their infrastructure, how in the world were they able to do as much as they did? It's absolutely fascinating. Absolutely fascinating. Number 2 probably have to be when the Atari was created. because I'm a big video game guy, and that's like the great grandparent of the Nintendo Switch, which I play now. But I'm a big video game guy. So like when the original Atari came out, I mean, home console like kind of changed the entire game, and rest in peace to the arcades. I think arcades were really cool, and there used to be a lot of them, but now people can play games at home, so there's less of a need for them. But yeah, when the Atari came out, that was pretty cool. And then the last one, I guess, probably Nat Turner Slave Rebellion. Favorite is a weird word to say about it. It's an event that's most interesting, one of the most interesting moments to me. I think because most of what you heard about enslavement and slavery during the 246 years was, docile, was, passive, was, slaves were victim, they were victimized, they were the thing that was being acted upon as opposed to active agents. Although it was very violent, I think it was just interesting to me when I first learned about Nat Turner Slave Rebellion. First I was in Virginia, in Southampton County, in Southampton County, which I was in our district at the time in high school, which is weird because it's 2 hours from here. But and there were so many schools that were closer, but Southampton County was in our district, and so we drive 2 hours to go to Southampton to play soccer, track, cross country, whatever sports I was playing at the time. So that the fact that it happened in Virginia, and the fact that it was a pretty blatant example of slaves not just enslaved people not just being passive participants in this institution of slavery, that there were instances where they did fight back and try to get their freedom. You can disagree with the methods, by short, it's very violent. But to me, there was no other example that I'd ever gotten of slaves other than they got whipped, this, that, and the other. The roots, whatever. Like I'd never seen anything or heard of anything like it. To me, it was very interesting. And I'm sure I learned about it before high school, but like high school is when it actually like clicked. I'm like, wow, like these people actually fought back. They took up arms. Like, ooh, that's really cool. I'm gonna have to edit that part. That's really cool. So, yeah.
I support it. You ready?
Sure.
What is your favorite historical site to visit, or sites to visit?
I like a lot of sites. There are a lot of cool sites. I'll give 3 just to be quick. Namak, National Museum of African American History and Culture, was absolutely fantastic. Free to visit, although the food is very, very expensive. But it's good. But it's free to visit. It was good, but it's very expensive. But it was amazing. Literally on the miles of walking you have to do in the place, it's worth it. Fantastic place. If you get the chance to go again when things open back up, I'm sure there'll be limited capacity, but fantastic. And there's no experience I've ever had like it. Closest thing was probably the first time I saw Black Panther in the movie theater. I was like, I just sat for 10 minutes after and was like, whoa. Like, we go into the mock, I sat for like 5 hours and was like, I don't even know where to begin processing. Seeing the Emmett Till exhibit, I mean, that was particularly impactful. So the mock, definitely, if you get a chance to go from Farmville, it's only about 3 hours, which is nice, not terribly far. Montpelier, when I went there, that was really, really cool. Seeing their Mere Distinction of Color exhibit. And for me, you heard my rant probably last time about only one person getting the shine for a certain thing. But like James Madison, doesn't get taught about a lot. I mean, he was really close with Jefferson, and he was very much in that founding father group, but he don't really get no shine. And so it was interesting to hear about Madison's Montpelier, just because it was very interesting to learn about him and his life. And then the Mere Distinction of Color exhibit was absolutely breathtakingly well done. Fantastic, and I am very encouraged by all these sites that are not shying away from their history with enslavement in their past. I'm very much appreciative of sites that just take it on, head on, and just call it what it was. I'm very appreciative of that. And then Number 3, I gotta give a big shout out to the Virginia Holocaust Museum in Richmond, Virginia.
Yes.
They're a great institution. They do some great work. We've partnered with them on some stuff, some programs, some teacher workshops and things in the past. They did do some excellent work. It's a heavy topic, but I think they do a great job in telling in a way that is authentic, and that they do a great job of humanizing the story. And just their whole pedagogy and their thought and their kind of philosophy on teaching the Holocaust, I think it's fantastic, and they do a great job. So those are my three that I'm for now. If I didn't say anything about your site, doesn't mean I don't like your site. A big shout out to VMHC when they had the tournament exhibit. That was awesome. Plenty of other institutions I think that are great, but for now, those are my 3 with honorable mention to the VMHC. What about you, Leah? What are your thoughts?
Okay, so only had 2, but to make a third, definitely Namak.
You don't have to make it.
I mean, I just for consistency's sake, because that experience, I knew, like, I had to mentally prepare myself for that exhibit. Like, I talked to my twin about it. I was like, bro, I don't know how I'm gonna do this, but I'm gonna so kind of think. Of course, them it tell like knowing what was coming, because like the story,
right?
But then to see the casket is different. It's different. And they like walking up to it, you see pictures of like his mom.
Yeah.
And it's just like, I had to sit like for a minute just to deal with that, because it's a grief. It's a real grief, and like a fear aspect to it too, because it's like, will it happen again? What's going to happen? That kind of aspect of it. So just that museum, just for the sheer volume of history. And like their World War I exhibit was amazing. Like once we got into the museum, I was like, all right, I love you guys, bye, and like went straight to the World War I exhibit. And I spent a lot of time in there. So being able to see the artifacts, I wish I could have engaged closer with Charles Hamilton Houston's World War I diary. Like if they could digitize that, that'd be great. From my mouth to God's ear, somebody please digitize that. Just to see, like, because that shaped the rest of his life.
Right.
Next place. Historic Jamestown. Like the actual fort that they found. William Kelso. Also love his books. Easy read. Please read those. I dragged my mom there for a field trip. I had a great time. I think she did too. She actually engaged with like the interpreters. I was like, look at mom go. This is great. But like, again, the power of place and being there. And when I was little, I wanted to be an archaeologist. I wanted to dig in the dirt all day, which of course did not happen. But I'm at peace with that, because I can go to historic Jamestown and see how other people have engaged with like the land itself, what they found, when they found it, and what community it reflected. So it's just a cool space. There are skeletons from the people in there, so like disclaimer, if you're not okay with that, you may see that, or just avoid that building altogether. And there is signage, so it's not going to be a surprise. But it's just, it's just cool to be able to say like, oh yeah, I went to like the real fort. Although I love Jamestown Settlement for sure. It has like the one with the ships versus the one with the cannibalism. That aspect of it. Oh yeah. And then my last place is Fortress Monroe. So background, that's where the first 20 and odd like Africans were brought to America, like English colonial America. That's where it started. It's also where it ended, because that's when General Benjamin Butler made the call when 3 African American men, Frank Baker, Shepard Mallory, and James Townsend, literally got in like a boat and made their way across Hampton Roads to the fort and was like, hey, let us in. They were going to be sold. So if they got to Union Line, they were hoping they would be freed there. Butler thought about it and was like, yep, you can come on in. Because the contraband decision, if you say these people were contraband, I mean property, based on the Southern understanding of what slaves were. They were property. So rules of war, that's contraband. Bring them in, because you can't help with the Confederate war effort. So for me, like, it's where it started and also where it ended. So it gives like the full arc of slavery's story within the U.S. Like, it started the dissolving of it anyway. So yeah, it's a...
You say Townsend or Townshend?
Townsend.
Like my last name?
Yeah. Gotta do some research.
Curious.
Yeah, it's real curious. So, and it's like we were talking in a previous pod, it's a feeling.
Yeah.
Like it's like it's not an eerie feeling, but it's like a, you are where something happened feeling. It's awesome.
There's nothing like it.
It's awesome.
Nothing like it at all. All right. Last question for this episode. Sorry I spent 10 minutes ranting on Golden Corral, but I'll promise I'll do better. But this time isn't too bad. This is going to be an interesting one too, especially to hear Leah's answer to this. What are, to you, Leah, are some of the most pivotal moments in African American history? Let's, for the sake of time, limit it to 2.
Okay.
And I'll do the same.
Yeah. All right. So the passage of the 13th Amendment.
Ooh.
Yeah. It ends slavery. Legally, it ends it. It's gone. Except as a form of punishment. But that's a later story.
Ooh, prison industrial complex.
There it is. So it's kind of like, all right, it's done. Right. Except just in case, that aspect of it.
Right.
But then, like, to segue to Juneteenth, how, like, that's becoming a celebration. In some places it already was, but it's kind of, like, spreading throughout different communities.
Right.
That was the day, June 19th, 1865, African Americans who were enslaved in Texas heard that they were free. Like, they just didn't know. So, like, could you imagine technically having been free, but not? Yeah, it's just like, it's such a weird space. But then to have a day to celebrate, to say, like, this is the freedom, this is the day when we started to just be versus, being owned. So, yeah, those 2 events.
Yeah, you picked 2 pretty good ones. Now I gotta think. Shout out to 13th documentary on Netflix. Fantastic piece if you haven't had a chance to watch it. And are still inside your house. It's a great documentary to watch. Yeah. There's so many moments. I said 2 for a second time, and now I'm having trouble narrowing it to 2. Let me just get to them. I think the Dred Scott decision was huge for not good reasons. But I think the Dred Scott decision, which basically said that you basically denied African American citizenship because they were slaves and slaves couldn't sue, and therefore, they couldn't sue, which was like, whoa. It was expected probably for the time period that it was in, but that really kind of shut the door on any future of African Americans in legal fights, at least during that time period. So that was big, I think. And then the other, I'm trying not to cop out and say Brown v. Board, but I might be leaning towards Brown v. Board. Let me see if I can go. No, let's go with the Voting Rights Act of 1965.
Oh, yeah.
And I think that's pivotal for obvious reasons because of what it did, but I think that was like the last, maybe Love Me Virginia you count as the last kind of big civil rights era decision or legislation, but I think the Voting Rights Act of 1965 was like finally, like, we have not won, but we've won this battle. Because between, the Brown decision of 54 and the Voting Rights Act, I mean, there's so much that happened in between there. And I think when you think of traditional civil rights, usually we think of it ending around the Voting Rights Act of 1965, if not right at. Maybe I'll give, 67 with Love Me Virginia for interracial marriage, but that might be a little bit different. But I think really 1965 Voting Rights Act was hugely significant, and I think it marked, like, we're past the point of no return in terms of civil rights, equality, inclusion, no matter how hard people fight to maintain this idea of segregation and systemic oppression of blacks, there's always going to be a fight back, and it's not going to last, at least in terms of like public sentiment in the court and things like that. I think that's the point in time is when it became not okay for people to just come out and say blacks shouldn't be able to do this, blacks shouldn't be, which people still probably said, but like actual backlash for saying those type of things. Am I making sense? That makes sense. Yeah. Like to me, it was the end of an era per se. If that makes sense. I
mean, you had the federal backing for it, and then federal action too, not just it's on paper, but it's not
right.
Enforced. That's the word.
Yeah. Honorable mention to just the whole 1968 year in general, just because that was a tumultuous year.
Yeah.
Yeah. So not 30 minutes, and I'll do some editing in there to fix my noise I made earlier. But
it's authentic.
Authentic is not always good, especially with me. Anything else from you, Leah?
No, I think that about sums us well now.
Alrighty, so the next episode, same time, same place, wherever you find podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Play Store, or Anchor.com. Just look up the Moton Mailbag. Please keep sending in your questions to all of our social media platforms or email us, info@motonmuseum.org. Have a good one. Talk to you soon.
Mm-hmm.